When my daughter told me I was embarrassing her family and needed to move out within 30 days, she had no idea that the broke dishwasher she was ashamed of actually owned the building she lived in, the Michelin star restaurant her husband worked at, and 7 other establishments across Los Angeles worth $52 million. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Linda Torres, and I'm 62 years old. Every morning, I wake up at 5 o'clock in my small studio apartment in Echo Park. The place isn't much, just 400 square feet with a Murphy bed, a tiny kitchenette, and a bathroom that's seen better days. But it's mine. Or at least that's what everyone thinks. I take the bus to work because my car, a 15-year-old Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, finally gave up last year. The bus ride takes 45 minutes, and I use that time to read, usually mystery novels from the library. I pack my lunch every day, usually leftovers, or a simple sandwich, because eating out is expensive. And I'm careful with money. I've been careful with money my whole life. I work at Aria, a Michelin star restaurant in downtown LA. If you ask my daughter Ashley what I do there, she'll tell you I wash dishes. And she's right. Technically, I do wash dishes. I also scrub pots, mop floors, and take out the trash. I wear a stained white uniform that smells like industrial soap and bleach. And my hands are rough and red from the constant exposure to hot water and detergent. The work is hard. Backbreaking, really. But I don't mind it. At my age, most people would think I'm crazy for doing this kind of labor. But I have my reasons. Ashley is my only daughter. She's 32 now, married to a man named Damian Wright. Damian is 35 and the executive chef at Aria, which is how we're all connected in a way. Damian came up through the ranks, started as a line cook, and worked his way up to executive chef over 10 years. He's talented, I'll give him that. His food is extraordinary. But success changed him. Or maybe it just revealed who he always was. He's arrogant now, condescending, especially to the people he considers beneath him. The busboys, the dishwashers, the cleaning crew, we're all invisible to him unless we make a mistake. Then he notices us. And trust me, you don't want Damian Wright to notice you when you've done something wrong. Ashley wasn't always like this. When she was growing up, we didn't have much. Her father left when she was 3, and I raised her on my own. I worked multiple jobs, waitress, cook, house cleaner, whatever I could find. We lived in a tiny apartment, even smaller than the one I'm in now, and there were months when I had to choose between paying the electricity bill or buying new shoes for Ashley's growing feet. She always got the shoes. I'll never forget the look on her face when I'd come home exhausted, my feet swollen, my back aching, and she'd run into my arms like I was a superhero. Back then, she loved me for who I was, not what I had. Things changed when she met Damian 5 years ago. He came from money, not crazy rich, but comfortable. His father, Richard Wright, is a developer in Orange County. They live in a nice house, drive nice cars, belong to a country club. When Ashley started dating Damian, I could see her beginning to see our life, my life, differently. Suddenly, my old car was an embarrassment. My simple clothes were dowdy. My couponing habit was something she'd laugh about with Damian's family, not with pride about how resourceful I was, but with shame about how poor we were. They got married 6 months ago. It was a small wedding, mostly Damian's family and friends. I offered to contribute, but Ashley said not to worry about it, that Damian's parents were covering everything. I wasn't offended. I was relieved, honestly. Let them think I couldn't afford it. Let them think I was just a struggling dishwasher barely making ends meet. I had my reasons for keeping up this facade, and the wedding wasn't the time to drop it. After the wedding, Ashley and Damian moved into a modern 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan Beach. It's a beautiful place. All white walls and floor-to-ceiling windows with an ocean view. The rent is $4,000 a month. I know because I'm the one who owns the building, but they don't know that. They think they rent from some faceless property management company. They've never even met their landlord. That's me. I'm their landlord. You're probably wondering why I'm doing this, why I'm pretending to be poor when I'm not. It's complicated. When Ashley was young, I made a promise to myself that if I ever made money, real money, I wouldn't let it change who we were. I didn't want her to love me for what I could buy her. I wanted her to love me for who I am, and I wanted her to learn the value of hard work, of earning things, of treating everyone with respect regardless of their job or bank account. So even as my business grew, as I bought property and opened more restaurants, I kept living simply. I wanted to see if Ashley would still love me when I couldn't give her anything except myself. I guess I got my answer. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks ago. It was mid-December, and Aria was fully booked with holiday parties and special events. Ashley had reserved the private dining room for what she called a holiday gathering with her friends. She's a food blogger and Instagram influencer. She has about 50,000 followers, and many of her friends are in the same world. Food photographers, recipe developers, other bloggers. They take pictures of everything they eat and post it online with long captions about flavor profiles and presentation. I don't really understand it, but it makes Ashley happy, so I try to be supportive. I was working the evening shift that day, which meant I'd be there until at least 10 o'clock. The kitchen gets hot and chaotic during dinner service. Pots and pans pile up faster than I can wash them, and the steam from the industrial dishwasher makes my glasses fog up. Damien was in rare form that night, yelling at the line cooks, throwing a pan across the kitchen when someone overcooked a steak. Nobody says anything when Damien throws a tantrum. We all just keep our heads down and work. During my break, I stepped out into the alley behind the restaurant to eat my dinner. I'd brought leftover rice and beans from home, packed in an old yogurt container. I was sitting on an overturned milk crate, enjoying the cool evening air, when I heard Ashley's laugh from inside. The private dining room has windows that face the alley, and I could see her in there with her friends. She looked beautiful, wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, her hair styled perfectly. She was happy, animated, telling some story that had her friends laughing. I felt a surge of love for her. My baby girl, all grown up. I finished my rice and beans, threw away the container, and decided to pop my head in to say hello. I thought she'd be happy to see me. I was wrong. I walked through the back entrance and made my way to the private dining room. I was still in my uniform. It was wet from dishwater and had a few stains from the night's service. My hair was pulled back in a bun under a hairnet, and I probably smelled like the kitchen, but I was her mother. I thought she'd be happy to see me, even like this. When I pushed open the door to the private dining room, the conversation stopped. 10 faces turned to look at me. Ashley's smile froze. "Mom?" she said, her voice tight. "What are you doing here?" "I'm on break," I said cheerfully. "I thought I'd say hello." "Your party looks lovely." One of her friends, a young woman with perfect makeup and designer clothes, leaned over to Ashley. "Who is that?" she whispered, but not quietly enough. Ashley's face turned red. That's just staff." Before she could finish, Damien appeared behind me. "Linda!" His voice was sharp, cutting. "What are you doing in the dining room? You know staff isn't allowed out here during service." I turned to face him. "I'm on break, and I wanted to say hello to my daughter." Damien's jaw tightened. He glanced at Ashley, then back at me. "This is a Michelin star restaurant, Linda. We have standards. You can't just walk around in your work clothes, bothering guests." Back to the kitchen. Now, the word bothering stung. I looked at Ashley, waiting for her to say something, to defend me, to introduce me properly to her friends. But she didn't. She just looked down at her plate. "Ashley?" I said softly. She finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes broke my heart. It wasn't anger. It was shame. She was ashamed of me. "Mom," she said quietly, "you should go. This is important for my work. These are colleagues. I need to maintain a certain image." "Image?" The word came out sharper than I intended. Damien stepped between us. Linda, I'm going to ask you one more time to return to the kitchen. If you don't, I'll have to write you up. A food critic who was seated at the table looked uncomfortable. He shifted in his seat, clearly not enjoying the confrontation. But no one said anything. No one defended me. I left quietly, holding back tears until I got back to the dish pit. I scrubbed pots for the rest of the night with shaking hands, replaying the scene over and over in my mind. The next morning, Ashley called me. I almost didn't answer. Mom, she started, her voice carefully controlled. About last night, I'm sorry you felt embarrassed, but you have to understand. Damien's right. You can't just show up in the dining room like that. I'm your mother, Ashley. I know, but... Mom, these people, my followers, my friends, they judge everything. Your appearance, your clothes, even your job. It reflects on me, on us. I see, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was racing. And what exactly is wrong with my appearance? She sighed. Like I was being difficult. You were wearing your work clothes. You looked. Mom, you looked poor. My friends were asking questions afterward. Who was that woman? Does she work there? I had to explain that you were the dishwasher, and then they were looking at me differently. Looking at you differently how? Like I came from nothing. Like I'm not. Is successful. You did come from nothing, Ashley. We both did. I worked hard to give you opportunities. There's no shame in that. That's easy for you to say, she snapped. You don't have to maintain a brand. You don't have to worry about what people think. Damien's family is successful. His father is a developer. They have money, status, and then there's you. Washing dishes and taking the bus. Do you know how that looks? I was quiet for a moment. How does it look, Ashley? Like failure. It looks like failure. The words hung in the air between us. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, waiting for me to respond. But I didn't know what to say. How do you respond when your own daughter calls you a failure? Finally, she spoke again. Mom, I've been thinking, maybe it's time for you to move. Move? Move where? Anywhere. Just somewhere else. Damien and I are looking at houses. We're trying to build a life here. And honestly, you're holding us back. People judge us by our families, by our connections. We can't be associated with. She trailed off. With what, Ashley? Say it. With struggling. With failure. With poverty. I'm not struggling, I said quietly. Your apartment is 400 square feet, Mom. You take the bus. You wash dishes for minimum wage. If that's not struggling, I don't know what is. I almost told her then. Almost revealed everything. But something stopped me. Maybe I wanted to see how far she'd go. Maybe I needed to know if there was any part of my daughter left who valued me for who I am, not what I could give her. So you want me to move? I said. Yes. By January 15th. That gives you 30 days. This is my home, Ashley. Actually, it's a rental. And I checked with the property management company. Your lease is up for renewal next month. We told them not to renew it. My breath caught. We? You? And Damien? Damien's father owns the building, Mom. He's been very generous, keeping your rent low all these years. But he needs the unit for other purposes. So yes, we told him not to renew your lease. You need to be out by January 15th. I closed my eyes. Richard Wright didn't own my building. I did. I'd bought it 8 years ago as part of my real estate portfolio. But Ashley didn't know that. Neither did Damien or Richard. Nobody knew. I understand, I said quietly. Good. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. It's for the best, Mom, really. She hung up. I sat in my small apartment, looking at the Murphy bed, the kitchenette, the bathroom with its chipped tiles. This place had been my home for 3 years. I'd chosen it deliberately. kept it simple, maintained the facade. But now the facade was costing me my daughter. That weekend, I had plans to visit the farmer's market in Silver Lake. It's something I do every Saturday morning, not as Linda the dishwasher, but as Linda the person. I dress differently on my days off, nicer clothes, though still modest. I let my hair down. I smile more. At the farmer's market, I'm just another customer browsing vegetables and homemade bread, but I'm also there for business. Several of my vendors supply my restaurants. They don't know I'm the one who owns the restaurants. Of course, they think they're selling to Torres Restaurant Group, some faceless corporation, which is technically true. Torres Restaurant Group is my company, but I'm careful to keep my personal identity separate. Marcus Rivera is my business partner and the general manager of my flagship restaurant. He's the only person who knows the full truth about my double life. Marcus and I go way back. He was my sous chef when I had my first restaurant 30 years ago. And he's been with me through everything. He's the one person I trust completely. We met at our usual spot, a coffee stand near the market. Marcus was already there when I arrived, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Boss," he said, handing me a cup, "you look tired." "I am tired," I admitted. "How long are you going to keep this up?" He'd asked me this question 100 times before. I don't know anymore. What happened? I told him about the incident at Area, about Ashley's phone call, about the eviction notice. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. "That's it," he said when I finished. "You're telling her. This has gone on long enough. I wanted her to love me for who I am, not what I have. And she doesn't. She made that clear. So what are you protecting her from? Let her see the truth. And then what? She'll feel guilty. She'll apologize. But will she really change? Or will she just be nice to me because she knows I'm rich?" Marcus Seahill. "I can't answer that for you. But I do know this: you deserve better than to be treated like garbage by your own daughter." We walked through the market together, discussing business. The new Santa Monica location was almost ready for its grand opening. We'd hired staff, finalized the menu, done all the prep work. It was going to be beautiful, a seafood restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. I was excited about it, but the situation with Ashley had dampened my enthusiasm. "By the way," Marcus said casually, "we got a call from Richard Wright's office yesterday." I stopped walking. "Richard Wright? Damien's father?" "Yeah. Apparently he's doing background checks on his son's in-laws. Standard procedure for his business or something. His assistant called asking for employment verification for Linda Torres." "What did you tell them?" "I told them to submit their request in writing to our legal department." "But boss, if they do that, they're going to find out. The paperwork has your name all over it. CEO, founder, principal owner. There's no hiding it. If they dig." My heart was pounding. "When did they call?" 2 days ago. So Richard Wright was investigating me. That was interesting. And it meant that the truth was going to come out soon, whether I wanted it to or not. "Let them find out," I said finally. "I'm done hiding," Marcus grinned. "Now we're talking." "So, what's the plan?" "I need to talk to Ashley first. Before Richard does. And I need to do it on my terms." "What are you going to do?" I thought about it. About Ashley's words. About Damien's contempt. About 30 years of hard work, of building something from nothing, of sacrificing everything so my daughter could have opportunities I never had, and about how little any of it mattered to her now. "I'm going to teach her a lesson," I said quietly. The next week was busy. Richard Wright's legal team did submit their background check request in writing, and our legal department responded with the truth. I got a call from Richard himself 3 days later. "Mrs. Torres," he said, his voice cautious. "I believe we need to talk." "I believe you're right, Mr. Wright." We met at a neutral location, a cafe in Beverly Hills that, coincidentally, I owned. Richard didn't know that either. He was a tall man in his late 60s, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "I'll get straight to the point," he said after we ordered coffee. "My team did a background check on you. Standard procedure, I do it for all business associates and family members. Nothing personal. I understand. What I found was unexpected. Torres Restaurant Group. 8 locations across Los Angeles. Estimated value of $52 million. You're the founder and CEO. That's correct." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "And yet you work as a dishwasher at Aria. Why?" "Market research," I said simply. "I spend time in every position at every restaurant I own or plan to acquire. I need to understand the work from the ground up. Aria's building. You own that too." "I do. I bought it 6 years ago when the previous owner went bankrupt." "Damien doesn't know. Neither does my daughter." "Why not?" I met his eyes. "Because I wanted to see who my daughter really was. If she would treat me with respect when I had nothing to offer her." Richard was quiet for a long moment. "Then," he said, "and she told me I was holding her back, that I looked like failure, that I was embarrassing her and her husband. She gave me 30 days to move out of my home, the apartment in Echo Park, which I also own, the entire building. Your son and his wife told me you owned it and were evicting me." Richard's face flushed red. I would never, Mrs. Torres, I apologize. I had no idea they said that. I know you didn't. But your son did say it, and my daughter went along with it. And that tells me everything I need to know. What are you going to do?" I pulled out a folder I'd brought with me and slid it across the table. "Aria's lease on the building is up for renewal next month. I'm not renewing it. They have 60 days to vacate." Richard's eyes widened. "That will destroy the restaurant. Damien won't be able to afford rent anywhere comparable. The Michelin star is tied to that location." "I know. And your daughter's apartment?" "I'm selling the building. She has 30 days to find new housing." "Exactly what she gave me." Richard was quiet, processing this. Then, to my surprise, he nodded slowly. "I can't say I blame you. What my son did was wrong. What your daughter did was worse. But Mrs. Torres, is there any way—" "No," I cut him off. "I know what you're going to ask. Will I reconsider if they apologize, if Damien begs, if they promise to change?" And the answer is no, not now. They need to learn this lesson, Mr. Wright, and I need to know if my daughter can love me when I can't give her anything. "You're not going to tell them who you are?" "I'm going to show them. Actions, not words." Richard stood up. "Then I suppose there's nothing more to say. Except," he paused, "I won't help them. If Damien comes to me asking for money, asking me to fix this, I'll tell him no. What he did to you was cruel and classist. He's old enough to face the consequences." "Thank you." He left, and I sat alone with my coffee, feeling strangely calm. I made my first call from that cafe to my property management company, instructing them to begin eviction proceedings for my daughter's apartment, not because she hadn't paid rent. She had every month, on time, but because I was selling the building, and all tenants needed to vacate. Legal, clean, and final. My second call was to my commercial real estate attorney, instructing him to send Aria's management a notice of non-renewal for their lease. Again, completely legal. I didn't need a reason not to renew. I was the landlord. It was my choice. My third call was to Marcus. "Start the process. I want everything ready." "You're sure about this?" he asked. "I'm sure." The notices went out the next day. Ashley called me that evening, her voice panicked. Mom, something terrible happened. Our landlord is selling the building. We have to move out in 30 days. And Damien's restaurant is losing its location. They're not renewing the lease. He's devastated. This could ruin his career." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said calmly. "Can you believe it? What kind of landlord just kicks people out like this?" And the restaurant Damien put 10 years into that place. Now some greedy property owner is just pulling the rug out from under him. Life is unpredictable, I said. Mom, this isn't funny. We're going to have to find a new apartment, and rent prices are insane right now. And Damien is talking about leaving Los Angeles entirely. His career might be over. Maybe his father can help. We called him. He said no. Can you believe that? His own son is in crisis, and Richard just said, "You'll figure it out." What kind of father does that? The kind who thinks his son needs to learn a lesson, I said quietly. There was a pause. Then Ashley said, Mom, I need to ask you something. Can you lend us money? For what? For a deposit on a new apartment. Maybe first and last month's rent. We have some savings, but not enough for the kind of place we need, especially now that we have to move fast. How much do you need? $10,000? Maybe 15? I was quiet thinking. Then I said, Ashley, when you told me to move out, did you ask if I had somewhere to go? What? Did you ask if I could afford a new place? If I had money saved? I assumed you'd figure it out. You always do, but you didn't ask. Mom, why are you bringing this up now? This is serious. We need help. So did I. And you threw me out. She was silent for a long moment. Then, in a smaller voice, she said, I said I was sorry. No, you didn't. You said you were sorry. I felt embarrassed. That's not the same thing. Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I handled it. But Mom, please. We need help. You're my mother. Isn't that what mothers do? Mothers also deserve respect, Ashley. They deserve to be treated like human beings, not embarrassments. I know. I was wrong. Can we please talk about this later? Right now I need to know, will you lend us the money? No. No? Her voice rose. Mom, I'm your daughter, and you told me I was a failure. You told me I was holding you back. You were ashamed of me in front of your friends. You asked me to leave my home because my existence was inconvenient for your image. So no, Ashley. I won't lend you money. Figure it out yourself. You always do. I hung up before she could respond. Over the next week, things got worse for Ashley and Damien. The story of Aria losing its location hit the food blogs. People speculated about what had happened. Some blamed Damien for alienating the landlord. Others blamed the landlord for being greedy. A few people who'd been at Ashley's dinner party started talking about the incident with the dishwasher, though they didn't know the dishwasher was my daughter's mother. One food critic wrote a think piece about the toxic culture in high-end restaurants and how chefs treated their staff. Damien's reputation took a hit. Other restaurants were hesitant to hire him with all the negative press. Ashley's social media engagement dropped. As her followers sensed drama, she stopped posting pictures of expensive meals and started posting vague, inspirational quotes about resilience. Through it all, I kept washing dishes at Aria. I showed up for every shift, scrubbed every pot, took out every bag of trash. Damien barely looked at me now. He was too busy panicking about the future. The other staff whispered about what was happening, speculating about who the mystery landlord was and why they were doing this. If only they knew. 2 weeks after the notices went out, Marcus called me. Boss, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Ashley showed up at the Santa Monica location. She's been asking the staff questions about Torres Restaurant Group, trying to figure out who owns it. She's smart. She's putting pieces together. Let her, I said. It's time. You want her to find out this way? I want her to do the work. If she's smart enough to figure it out, then we'll have that conversation. 3 days later, Ashley called me. Her voice was different, quieter, uncertain. Mom, I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Of course. We agreed to meet at a cafe. Not one I owned neutral ground. When I arrived, Ashley was already there, sitting at a corner table with her laptop open. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping well. When she saw me, she stood up, but she didn't hug me. She just gestured to the chair across from her. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Of course." She was quiet for a moment, staring at her laptop screen. Then she turned it to face me. On the screen was a business registration document for Torres Restaurant Group, and there, listed as founder and CEO, was my name. My full legal name, Rosalinda Maria Torres. "That's you," Ashley said quietly, "isn't it?" I nodded. "You own Torres Restaurant Group." "Yes. 8 restaurants. $52 million. 52.3. But yes. Her hands were shaking. "How long?" "I started the first restaurant 30 years ago. A food truck. Actually. Built it from there. 30 years. She was still processing. "The entire time I was growing up." "Yes. And you never told me." "No." "Why?" I leaned back in my chair, considering how to explain. "When you were little, we struggled. You remember that. I worked multiple jobs. We lived in a tiny apartment. There were times we barely had enough. But I was happy. Ashley, because you loved me, not because of what I could buy you. I couldn't buy you anything, but because I was your mom. And I loved you so much." My voice caught, but I continued. "Then I started making money, real money, and I saw how money changed people, how it made them greedy, entitled, how it destroyed families. I didn't want that for us. So I kept living simply. I wanted you to learn the value of work, of earning things, of treating everyone with respect, no matter their job or their bank account. I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have. So you tested me." Her voice was bitter now. "I suppose I did, yes. And I failed." "You did." She was quiet, tears running down her face. "The apartment. That was you." "Yes." "Area. The restaurant building. You own that too." "Yes." "You're evicting us." "Yes." "Why?" The word came out as a sob. "Why are you doing this to me?" I felt my own tears starting. But I kept my voice steady. "Because you told me I was a failure. You were ashamed of me. You asked me to leave my home because my existence was inconvenient for your image. You judged me, dismissed me, treated me like I was worthless. And I needed you to understand how that felt." "I didn't mean it," she whispered. "Yes, you did. Maybe you regret it now, but in that moment, you meant every word. You looked at me and saw someone not worth your time, not worth your respect, not worth your love. And that broke my heart, Ashley." We sat in silence for a long moment. Then Ashley said, "What do I do now?" "You figure it out. You find a new apartment. Damien finds a new job. You rebuild. You learn. You grow up. And us? You and me?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'll always be your mother, Ashley. I'll always love you. But right now, I need you to understand the consequences of your actions. I need you to learn that every person deserves respect, regardless of their job or their bank account. I need you to become someone I can be proud of again." "I want that," she said, crying harder now. "I want to make you proud. Then show me." "Not with words, with actions." She nodded, wiping her tears. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you still work as a dishwasher?" "You don't need the money." "Because I never want to forget where I came from. I never want to become someone who looks down on others because they work with their hands, or take the bus, or shop with coupons. The day I stop understanding what it's like to be at the bottom is the day I stop being a good boss. And I never want that." Ashley looked at me with new eyes, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You're amazing, Mom. I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." "Thank you." "But I need more than words, Ashley." "I know. I'll show you. I promise." We talked for another hour. I explained the full scope of my business, how I'd built it, the decisions I'd made along the way. Ashley listened, asking questions, taking notes. For the first time in years, I saw a spark of my little girl. The one who used to look at me like I was a superhero. When we finally parted, I felt lighter. The truth was out. The consequences were in motion. What happened next was up to Ashley. Over the next 6 months, I watched my daughter transform. She and Damien found a smaller, more affordable apartment. Damien took a job as a sous chef at a mid-level restaurant. Not glamorous, but steady work. His ego took a beating, but it needed to. He started treating staff better, speaking to people with respect, acknowledging that every job in a restaurant matters. Ashley shut down her Instagram. She said the constant pressure to present a perfect life was making her miserable. Instead, she started working. Real work. She applied for a server position at one of my restaurants, not knowing I owned it, and got hired on her own merit. She was terrible at first, messing up orders, forgetting drinks, getting frazzled during busy shifts. But she kept at it. She learned. She apologized when she made mistakes. She started to understand what it meant to work with your hands, to serve others, to earn respect, rather than demand it. I watched from a distance, getting reports from Marcus and the restaurant managers. Ashley never asked for special treatment, never mentioned that the owner was her mother. She just worked, harder than I'd seen her work in years. One day, about 8 months after our conversation at the cafe, Ashley called me. "Mom, can we have dinner?" "My treat." "Your treat?" "I've been saving my tips. I want to take you somewhere nice." We went to a small Italian restaurant in Silver Lake. Not one of mine, just a neighborhood place with good food and reasonable prices. Ashley looked different, still beautiful, but softer somehow, more real. Over pasta and wine, she told me about her life, about learning to budget, about the satisfaction of earning her own money, about a regular customer who'd taught her how to carry 3 plates at once. She talked about Damien's journey too, how humbling this experience had been for him, how their relationship was stronger now that they'd faced real adversity together. "I have something to tell you," she said as we finished dessert. "I'm pregnant." My heart leapt. "Ashley, that's wonderful." 3 months, we just found out. "And Mom, I want my child to know you, the real you. I want them to learn from you, to understand what real success looks like." Real success? Not money, not status. Character, kindness, resilience. That's what you taught me. It just took me a while to learn the lesson. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of you, Ashley. Thank you." She paused, then said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. The restaurant where I'm working." "Torres Restaurant Group owns it, doesn't it?" I smiled. "How did you figure that out?" "I saw Marcus there last week. He was reviewing the books with the manager. It clicked." "Do you mind?" "Mind?" "Mom, I'm grateful, but I need you to know I'm not going to use this to get ahead. I want to earn my way. No special treatment. I wouldn't have it any other way." We sat there together, mother and daughter, both of us changed by the journey we'd been through. Outside, Los Angeles sparkled in the evening light. Somewhere in the city were 7 more restaurants bearing my name, built through 30 years of hard work, sacrifice, and determination. But in that moment, none of it mattered as much as this. My daughter, finally seeing me for who I really am, and loving me anyway. 2 years later, my granddaughter Sophia was born. Ashley and Damien had worked their way back to stable ground. Damien had opened a small bistro, nothing fancy, but honest food made with care. Ashley managed one of my restaurants now, having worked her way up from server to shift supervisor to manager. She'd earned every promotion. On Sophia's first birthday, we had a party at my restaurant. The whole family was there, even Richard Wright, who'd become a friend over these past years. As I held my granddaughter, watching her smash cake into her face while everyone laughed, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. Ashley came and stood beside me. "Happy, Mom?" "Very. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." "You learned." "That's what matters." I'm going to make sure Sophia learns it too. That every person deserves respect. That character matters more than status. That real success is measured in how you treat others. That's all I ever wanted. We watched Sophia together, and I thought about the choices I'd made, the 30 years of building, the decision to keep my wealth hidden, the painful lesson I'd had to teach my daughter. It had been hard. Watching Ashley struggle, knowing I could have made it easier with a single phone call or a check, but she'd needed to learn. We all need to learn that who we are matters more than what we have. I still wash dishes sometimes, usually when I'm considering acquiring a new restaurant. I still take the bus occasionally. Though I also have a newer car now. I still use coupons. Not because I need to, but because I never want to forget what it's like to count every dollar. And I still live simply, because I learned long ago that happiness isn't found in possessions, but in relationships, in purpose, in knowing you've built something meaningful. My daughter called me a failure once. She was wrong, but in a way, I'm grateful she said it, because it forced both of us to confront who we really were and who we wanted to be. And in the end, we both became better people for it. That's the real measure of success.